Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Grown Folks Table podcast. It is pink. We're going pink tonight. It is pink day at the Grown Folks Table, and we're so excited because we are supporting breast cancer awareness. And so, what we have learned about supporting breast cancer awareness is that early detection saves lives. And so, tonight we are wanting to make sure that we send that message to all of the women and everyone that is pulling up to the Grown Folks Table tonight. Well, are you all ready to have some grown folks conversation?
Let's do it.
Oh, yes, let's do it.
Well, we are going to pull up to the table. We have a special guest tonight, Dr. Candace Cooper Lovett, who is a marriage, family, and sex therapist. And she's here to bring her expertise on our conversation. As you know, we have posted all over social media that tonight's conversation at the Grown Folks Table is about monogamy. And so let's bring Dr. Cooper Lovett up so she can go ahead and say hi to everyone as we dive into our conversation.
Hello, ladies. Hello, everyone. How's it going?
Hey, how are you? Thanks for coming.
Good. Yes, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate that.
Well, we're glad to have you be a part of our conversation. Let's just jump into it, ladies. Traditional views, as we may know them, about romantic relationships are changing, leading some to wonder if monogamy is still a good relationship model. But the form of a relationship matters less to its success than maintaining honest boundaries. And a lot of things that brought this particular conversation on is the celebrity couple, Will and Jada Pinkett Smith, which they have been married for about 23 years, Will being 51 and Jada being 48. And so their relationship and the dynamics of the relationship continues to have some type of influence, not just on the pop culture, but on relationships as a whole. So we're just going to go ahead and pull it out the bag. Is this the new norm for relationships? Is monogamy a thing of the past? Y'all talk to me about it.
I'm just glad I'm married. Now, now.
And
And as a matter of fact, this Saturday it'll be 28 years. Because if Jay came with some foolishness like that right now, and I think I'm pretty liberal. You know what I'm saying? I think I'm pretty liberal in my thinking. I just don't know if I can do them. I just pray that this value that we have, that we said 28 years ago, that, to death do us part, not anybody else, that, through sickness and in health, through rich and through poor, that it's just he and I, and not anyone else. I wish he would come with some foolishness like that right now, but it seemed to be the conversation and the talk among, folks now. And I'm glad we're bringing it up as well.
I don't think it's anything new. I mean, I just think that it's uncovered in a way now because we're in a society or a culture where things are a lot open, and that, people are pretty fluid in how they experience sexuality and how they define marriage. So I think the traditional setting of what some of us may define marriage as is not necessarily what others are doing. People are not getting married necessarily, in churches anymore. People are getting married in various places. Their friends are marrying them from getting ordained over the internet. And so people are no longer doing rings. People are doing tattoos on the left hand. So I think it's all about what works for you. I think it may not be our thing, but it certainly is. Let's just look at Jill and Will and Jada. I was about to say Jada Will, but Will and Jada, I mean, they've been married a long time, and they have gone a very long time for a Hollywood couple. And so, and they've been through their challenges that any other marriage really would go through. They've been through cheating. That happens in monogamous marriages. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure they've gone through things with children that happen in monogamous marriages. So it works for them. And if that's what they decided to do, and that's what they covenanted to do, then to me, hey, it is what it is. I'm a reverend, and I wouldn't throw the Bible at nobody about it, because it's not my position to do that. What people decide to covenant to do, that's what they decide to covenant to do. But I do think, you really, I personally think you got to establish that at the beginning. Mm-hmm. I don't think that can be introduced midway in. I think that may be a problem, but I think you have to establish who you are sexually and who you are in terms of, how you view marriage.
If I could chime in a little here, and I want to say I welcome the discussion, but I don't know. The jury is still out with me, Libby.
Be strong, Vicky. Be strong.
I'm very strong. I'm real strong. I told our doctor, illustrious doctor this evening, I'm a hopeless romantic, and I'm in love with love. But I also am in love with a traditional sense of love as it relates to monogamy. And I feel, Libby, a little bit different from you, but probably that's what makes us who we are at the grown folks table. And being a reverend myself, and I will throw the Bible at you, because I believe that there's a standard. And I believe while the world continues to change daily, it changes. I like the fact that some things remain, and that Bible has remained constant in my life. And so when people come, and they come on the regular to us as women of the word and of the cloth, my counsel doesn't change based on the edicts from the world or from the Jadas and the Will Smiths, because they are not the standard. While I celebrate some of their accomplishments, I don't agree with it, but that's life. We don't agree with a lot of things, but I want to, part of the legacy that I want to leave in the earth deals with constant. Now, I want them to say, not just that Jesus Christ the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. I really hope they say that about Vicky Turner, that I remain constant in my belief in the fidelity of marriage, in the sanctity of marriage between consenting adults, and not three. I believe in two, the power of two, the two becoming one, not the three becoming one. Now, I know our guests may tell us something different, so I yield the floor to the illustrious doctor.
Yes. And, I have my Candace hat, and then I have my Dr. Cooper Lovett hat. So Dr. Cooper Lovett hat says that, monogamy is contextual, and it's what the couple makes it to be. And, my whole motto is, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So, like I said, I've worked with polycules, or thruples, as they will call them, and trying to figure out what works for them. And it is, like you said, Dr. Libby, earlier, is like letting it be known from the jump that we're on the same page, that is made explicit, that we're transparent about everything that we do, and that we don't cross boundaries. But as human beings, sometimes, even in thruples, people still cross boundaries because people don't like to feel limited, or, oh, okay, we have these parameters. Let me push the mark to see how much further I can go, even though we had these conversations. And sexuality is very much fluid. And so even relationships are very much fluid in how we understand them. Monogamy is monogamy. But even in those contexts, some people may consider themselves monogamous because I'm married and staying with you. However, I do enjoy entertaining others. But ultimately, where I stay, or where I would keep myself occupied, is with you long term. So it's all in how people define relationships and marriage. Just for example, Will and Jada, it seems to work for them, I assume, but I did see the hurt on his face when she talked about this entanglement. So I don't know if some boundaries were crossed in that exchange, but it seems like it works for them. But it might have been some lines that were crossed at the same time too. I'm not gonna lie, because I could see it in his eyes, like he wanted to cry.
Yeah, because I think the thing was, he didn't really know. I think in their situation, they were to be upfront with everything, and in that case, I think that was one that she just had on the side that she did not share, and I think that's what threw him off a bit, you know. But not only Will and Jada, but Monique, the comedian Monique, came out that she and her husband were also in an open marriage, and it worked for them. I think what I see is, and what I understand is, you got to have the communication. But then, what do you do, doctor, if we've gone, 20 plus years in a relationship, then you want to come with this? What do you do in that situation?
Yeah, we have to definitely have a lot of conversations about, even when you think about infidelity, the the behavior itself is hurtful, yes, but the betrayal is the biggest piece of it. Because you didn't share, you weren't transparent with me, you didn't share with me. I thought we had this understanding, but evidently we didn't. And so, one of the books I had to get during my training was 101 Things I Wish I Knew Before I Got Married. And one of the things was, if we make a commitment to something, the expectation is that you follow through with that, because now you've broken a commitment, especially when you think about vows. Even if it means that we can be with other people, but that we always express to each other when and who it is with, and if my partner approves of it. So, those are the things of really kind of hashing out the hurt and getting a full understanding of what happened in the breach, what got in the way, and what was the thought process that led to that decision. Because, the decision is the decision, but I'm always curious about what was the thoughts that led to it. And so we definitely have to get to that place so that we don't run into that issue again, especially after 20 some odd years of marriage. So it's like, okay, where was the discrepancy? What went wrong? And really evaluating that and dissecting that from both angles, so that the person who's been hurt is understood, and that the person who did the breaching has a full understanding and accountability for what they did and why they did it, so it doesn't happen again.
And I think too, there are people who are in marriages that they consider is monogamous to an extent, and it's not an open marriage, who invite people in essence of fun. There are a lot of people who do that, and it's not an open marriage. It's not considered an open marriage. It's just a sexual experience that they invite to their bedroom. And so I think a lot of times we may not know what that looks like, those of us who are in traditional marriages and do not ascribe to such things. There are a lot of people who probably live next door to you that do that. We would be very surprised in what people have done in their marriages and what people have invited into their marriages. And we may see them in church and sitting in the pews and praising the Lord on Sunday. But do understand that, there are a lot of people who consider themselves in the monogamous bucket, but have extensive sexual experiences. And so when we talk about that,
Libby, I just need a little bit more clarity. First, let me, because I want to really make sure I hear you, because I understand adultery.
Don't ask my neighbor.
I understand whoredom. Promiscuity. I understand all those terms, but you gotta help me, sister, understand what the hell you're talking about. People consider themselves, please let me get it out. They consider themselves in a monogamous relationship.
Yeah.
Forget where they sitting in the church. I ain't talking about that, because the church is for the sinners. I'm okay with that. You said that they consider themselves to be monogamous.
Because the monogamous bucket and how you defined it is not just defined by sexuality.
Can I pull it up? I'm gonna pull it up. You want me to read?
You can pull it up.
Tell me what we talking about.
Dr. Cooper Lovett, you threw out two vocabulary words other than monogamy. What was those two descriptions?
I said polycules and thruples.
Yeah,
That's
thruple.
what
Now, please,
yeah.
please explain to Vicky
Help,
what
help the
a
children
thruple
tonight. You
is.
gotta help the children
And,
tonight, honey.
break that down for the people that are watching. If you have some questions tonight, please drop them in the chat because everybody hasn't been exposed to these vocabulary words.
I sure have it.
Help us understand, please.
Yeah. So thruples is just people in a relationship is three people. Thruple. Three. So or polycules, meaning, you know, polyamorous, but they're called polycules. Because I, you know, when I first met with them, I was like, what's the language for this? Because I didn't want to call them a couple because they're not a couple. So then my sex therapy supervisor said we call them polycules or we call them thruples. And that's how you define it. Polycules.
That dictionary growing every day.
Yes,
You gotta find language to describe
It's
situations.
fluid. It's
It is.
Thruples.
it is.
Yeah.
So let me throw this out here. Let me ask you this. Dr. Cooper Lovett, do you believe that unfulfilled sexual relationships within these marriages lead to these certain types of lifestyles?
Oh, it varies because some people are just like that by default. And you know, I remember having a throuple, and she was like, "Frankly, I like having more than one person. I'm just a freak like that." That's all she said. It wasn't due to not being satisfied sexually. It was just that's what she liked to do. So some people it's just a matter of this is me and this is what I like. And for some people, it could be that I'm not sexual. My sexual appetite exceeds this relationship. I still want you, but I need more than you too. So it can be both and or either or.
I'm so confused because I guess my question is, why did you get married? You know, and because maybe I think of the traditional way of marriage. I have not been able to kind of move from that, but you know, you could have just lived together. You know, unless you know. I don't understand that. You could have just been, you know, common law just allowed you to get the benefits that come along with getting married. But why did you have to involve a priest and a whole bunch of people to bear witness?
Everybody didn't involve a priest.
Well, I'm just saying there are some that
everybody in Christian.
I'm just trying to understand. I'm just trying to.
Yeah,
y'all are in your Christian box.
I'm not in the Christian box. I'm outside the Christian box. Because even before I was saved, let me just say this, because I am saved, sanctified, and filled with the Holy Spirit most of the time. But even before I was saved, I wasn't sharing my man with nobody.
Come on.
That's a negative, you know.
But you know what? That's fine. Because that's not what you all ascribe to or decide to do. And you are not alone. There are many of you. But there are also many of the others, and it works for them. So my thing is, there's no shun on it if that's what they decide. It's their marriage. It's just like I may not agree with how you and your husband that you may let him be the leader of the house. I may not ascribe to that as a womanist. I may not ascribe to that at all. But that's your choice in your household and your marriage. So it's the same piece. It's just because we use the word sex and we bring in another person, we see it in a whole different light, and it causes us to cringe. And we don't. But that goes in a lot. We can go deep with that because we have a problem with sexuality a lot of time. Not us on here. I'm just saying people in general, especially in the African American community. So there's a lot of hangups on what we consider what we should do in our marriage bed and what we shouldn't do. And people who are counselors spend a lot of time unearthing and unraveling that and breaking that from when they've been told certain things. So what I'm saying is, I know it sounds taboo to many of us who are in a traditional marriage, who don't ascribe to certain things, but it works for many people. That's why I said you'll be very surprised that your next door neighbor may be doing this. And they've been doing this for quite some time, and you wouldn't even know it.
Well, here's my other thing. I'm wondering if we're putting, you know, the safeguard of the family and marriage at risk by being so cavalier with what it is required to be in a marriage. You know, I'm just wondering. can we still safeguard monogamous relationships for the next generation? Because Kennedy gonna be confused as hell, about when it's her turn. I'm gonna have to really lay that foundation. Like, what you see in this household is what we expect your marriage to kind of, look like.
To
not
look like.
already drilled down, but your grandparents and your great grandparents. You understand, like, because I think
so you think in the traditional sense of that, and because there's polyamory, open relationship doesn't mean it's a threat to monogamy per se.
That's right.
Okay.
Monogamy can still exist. Well, at these other times, these other things can exist because with those communities, open marriages, polyamory, they have their own community. They have a whole world where they hang out and do things together. And it's a real life, like I said, and doing it in therapy, it's a real life, it's a relationship. They have the same issue, communication. And it makes it more complex, but I look at it in the form of systems, like it's a family, because it is a family, but it's still a thing where you're operating in a different space. Yes, it can be mind-boggling because it's outside of the realm of how we understand things. But for them, this is their way of being. And even in the context of marriage, it's like, yes, I have my main partner here. This is my companion. But when they bring in that third party, because oftentimes it's sexualized. And yes, sometimes it is about sex, but sometimes it's like, I just enjoy being in multiple relationships where this person, we're folding them in, we are each other's, so to say.
And society is making it okay. That's the thing, because access is out there. I mean, I remember when SZA had the song "The Weekend." You know what I'm saying? Like, you got him Monday through Thursday. I got him Friday through Sunday. It's the weekend. I mean, so and she's a popular artist to impressive ears. So if someone has got her in their ear, and now this is the #1 song, she's won a Grammy, a Soul Train, an American Music Award, and everything, then obviously this is okay. So it takes conversations like this to say, not really, but I think it's just a culture now that are making things that we feel like are wrong okay.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that they will have the weekend in their ear and then they say, oh, well, yeah, it's okay. There are people that's already doing that. Then here comes the weekend.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
Yeah, they can say that because
to a Kennedy, like Alicia said, to a Kennedy, it can be more impressive that way. I'm not saying to those who already do, because they are already in it. I'm just saying to the ones who it can influence. That's all I'm saying.
Let me tell you, let me wake us up at the table. These teenagers know more than us.
Well, I'm not even talking necessarily about knowledge. I'm just talking about when her time comes in her 20s and her 30s to desire to be married to one person, here it is. All of this is being presented. And let me just jump in real quick and say this. In his new book, The Monogamy Gap, Men, Love, and the Reality of Cheating, sociologist Eric Anderson argues that monogamy fails both men and women and believes we need to have more honest conversations about love and sex. He believes that we live in a pornified culture in which pornography is widely available, sexual experience begins at an early age, and sex is easier to obtain. Monogamy is becoming more and more difficult to uphold. So because we have this pornified culture, it has, according to Mr. Anderson, it has impacted and screwed maybe some of the don't have a heart attack.
You know what, sweetie? I'm gonna, when we finish up tonight, I'm gonna try to get my book finished. I'm gonna try to get it finished so that you can get my points of view, and then you can read a little portion of it as the standard almost. Listen, the books come a dime a dozen. Everybody's self-published right now. But I just believe, I share some of the views that you have, about the standard for our daughters, our children, our grandchildren. And Libby, what we are talking about tonight did not just show up today when the Will and Jada's got on TV. This stuff been going on since the beginning, Dr. Lovett, right?
Yes,
And so,
ma'am.
but it's been lifted up. A platform has been given to it. That still doesn't make it right.
Right.
I'm looking, I've been like this most all my life. I look for moral absolutes. I want
don't make it right according to what
is
Vicky.
wrong. What is wrong today is wrong tomorrow. It doesn't change just because celebrity said. You know, I grew up on Me and Mrs. Jones. Did I go looking for an extra person in the bed? No, I sang the song and I let Billy Paul
Clean up moment. Come on, clean up moment.
Who cares? I'm just saying. The world needs a standard, ladies.
Yes. I agree with you, Vicky.
But who sets the standard?
Who says
the standard for the world when we're not all Bible-based people? We're not all Christians. We're not all walking the walk. So what makes it right or wrong? So who's deciding?
who?
That's what for me, the BIBLE is the standard, you know, for me. And
because you're a Christian, right?
Yeah. I'm a Christian woman. Right. But here's the other thing, and those are my values. And regardless, the sanctity of marriage was found on Christian values. Even though we have gotten away from a whole lot of things, just like on the money, it says in God
they were getting married. They were getting married before we were Christians.
Well,
they were getting married ritually. They were covenanted ritually way before we were Christians.
And that may be true. And that may be true. But the predominant religion in the United States of America, where I currently reside,
is multi-religions. In the United States.
Yes, you can say it's Christianity. Yeah.
And so if I had to pull out a standard, I mean, because I don't know anything else but that when you said standard and values, because that's where I pull out my morale and the things that I hold important to how I govern and I live, and so for me, I just think that we have to take our authority back when it comes to what marriage looks like, in
your house,
from a Christian
for your family.
No, I'm talking from a Christian perspective, not just in my house, but from a Christian perspective, because if not, then the Will and Jada's start to become the norm, and then everyone will have this as a standard to look at, to say, okay, this is just how the open marriages should look. And I just think it's important for us to remain consistent in our assignment on what marriage is supposed to be. That's why I fight. Wait a minute now. That's why I fight for my marriage to be successful, because I want to make sure that I'm an example of what marriage can look like, and so that's why it's important to have people like Dr. Cooper Lovett in the Rolodex that you can call to be like, now what's up now? Tell me what needs to go on to enhance, to keep this going on. But we're not adding no extra party.
But what I'm saying, you don't have to, and that's your privilege, and that's your position. And so what I'm saying is, I have married many folk. And I've married some of them who were Christian, and they were not an example of a good marriage. They were a horrible example of a good marriage. I've married folk who were not Christian, and they are still married, and they are a great example of marriage. So I don't think that we as Christians hold the standard for marriage. We do not, and we got
the Bible does, Libby. The Bible does.
The Bible does for those who
Christians.
Are Christians. The Bible does not for those who are not Christian. Everybody everybody didn't get married reciting anything from the Bible. They did not. I've married people. I've married people, and they were not Christian people.
I got
But
you.
it was a
sweetie.
They
it
didn't
was
have
a
that as a
sanctity.
foundation.
It still was a sacred ceremony. What makes the ceremony sacred is not biblical. It's
Yeah.
not the Bible that makes it sacred. And so what I'm saying is we have to be very careful to shun folk who are in great marriages that are not Christian.
You know what, Libby? This
It's not right.
okay. I hear
It
you.
is very judgmental as
I hear
Christians.
you.
That's why people
I
don't
hear
want
you,
to be
my
Christian.
sister. And I know that I could be, it could be determined that I could be judgmental. It could be. I accept that. These are not the views of the grown folks table. These are my own personal views.
Sure,
I'll say that. Disclaimer. However, I do believe, and I stand on that. I've counseled many couples over the years. I've done marriage counseling, my husband. I've done all that.
Yep.
Met non-believers who were in horrible relationships, not celebrating good ones, okay?
Sure.
And because see, I believe that the only way to experience the ultimate marriage the way God intended it, you must come and know, you must invite him in to that relationship. That's what I believe. I don't believe success apart from the word of God will be success. Now, can we develop another standard of what success is? A definition? New word? Yeah, you can do it. But I just happen been around a minute.
But
I just
you don't
It's
subscribe
context.
to the part of the Bible that says that you shouldn't be working. Your husband is the one that should work.
I
We don't
understand
cover
that,
our
Libby.
head. We don't cover our heads. We don't do any of those things.
But you
So
got
what I-
you take it, but then
No.
that takes it out of context. You
No.
must read the Bible within context. With
Oh
context.
yeah, well, you know,
Right?
I've read it in context. I've read
Yeah,
it in two
but you know
languages.
when they
But
say
what
you're
I'm
covering
saying
your
is-
head and not working, I understand all of
It was
that.
Vicky,
okay.
it was a literal covering. It was a literal covering that
I
they wore.
understand.
So
They say
all
you
I'm
shouldn't
saying
touch your
is,
hair, but Libby, okay, I
I'm
don't want
saying,
to. I
no, what I'm
receive your
saying, Vicky.
views. I accept
No,
your
I
views.
receive yours. What I'm saying is, I don't want people who are listening tonight who are not Christian and who are in very good marriages and successful marriages. I don't want them to think that at the grown folk table, we only have a perspective as Christians. It's not fair. I'm an ordained minister. I'm a Christian at heart, but I'm open to that. And I've married people because I do believe that God does ordain marriages outside the fact that we got to be sitting here saying it comes straight from whatever the Bible is. Because I know that. So well, and that's why I grew up Muslim. I grew up Muslim.
I know.
And my father is still Muslim. And my friend, I have a friend that's Muslim, and they got married in the mosque, and it was a beautiful, sacred ceremony. So what I'm saying is we cannot take that perspective at the I won't take that perspective at the table. And I know there are people who are watching who are in great marriages, and those marriages are not Bible based. But it's still sacred, and that has to be honored, and it has to be respected. We don't have to agree with what folk do in their marriage. I don't agree with a lot of people's marriage and how they handle marriage. There's a lot of things I would disagree from what the Bible says and who holds the household. I would disagree there, and I have a right to disagree there. But I honor people who do that and do that well in their house. Because
I respect everybody's right to live the way they want. However, as for me and my house, when my husband is my covering, and my husband is the head of the house. Been doing this over 43 years. You understand? I'm saying now, are we the standard? I believe that we should represent the Bible. That's my faith. And while I recognize we're in a diverse world with diverse thoughts. And I accept that. I accept that, doctor, I do. I don't have to agree with it, but I accept the diversity that exists. However, and I love people. I am a compassionate person. But when foolishness comes to me, I call it what it is. We waste a lot of time on foolishness, but again, that's just for comic relief.
But I think the whole platform here is based on opinion as to how you see it. We all represent the names that are in front of us and how we feel about any and everything that we do discuss. So as a whole, it's an opinionated show about what these 4 tonight, 5 when Dolores is here, what we feel about any given subject, and even on this one as well. My thing is, and I know as we had stated before, a lot of this have been going on. Dr. Cooper Lovett have said that. My thing is why is it so prevalent now? You know, why is it part of conversation now?
Yeah. Because it's becoming more and more normalized too, you know, because I think about culture, and even in African cultures, even before that predates the transatlantic slave trade, polygamy was a thing. You know, polygamy built empires, polygamy built communities. And so, you know, and it's in that, definitely. And even predates Christianity, if we're going to say that, you know, in regards to people and culture. But now I think it's becoming more normalized, you know, same as when it comes to LGBTQIA, all those acronyms, it's becoming more normalized and put in the forefront for us, for it to be more, I guess you could say, palatable, you know. And so I think it's becoming the same as it relates to open marriage, polyamory, polygamy, which are 3 different things, you know. So, you know, those things are becoming more normalized, becoming more commonplace as it relates to having conversations as such. And then for people who feel like, you know, I say it's people who make choices out of stress or whatever is happening in their lives. And then there's people who make choices because that's just who they are. And so if I feel like I want to be in a poly relationship or a polygamous relationship, this is who I am and what I believe in. And like to the point about religion, you know, religion does play a factor, but think about Islam and the Muslim faith. Not all, but some practice polygamy. You know what I mean? So that's something in their religion and in their culture that feels justifiable and okay in the eyes of God, you know? And so it's like, it's all about context. It's all about things being relative to the individual or the persons involved in that relationship. And if it works for everybody collectively. Now, if it doesn't work for you, but it works for me, then we still have a problem. But if it works for all of us collectively, then that's a different thing. And I get the whole piece about standard. And I think it's different between a personal belief and how we, you know, share it and put it out there. And something that one of my mentors used to always say, it's a difference between having a position and an imposition. So I can have my position, but I won't impose. So, and everybody could look at that from a different space too. So, you know, it's definitely relative.
So what if the conversation comes up? And you're thinking that we've been moving in this space all of these years, and now all of a sudden you want to talk about these things that we have been discussing tonight. Then how do you start as a doctor, and I'm lying on your couch, how do you start having that kind of conversation if you're still feeling the way that you're feeling and maybe your partner is feeling a different way?
Yeah, it'll have to be some serious conversation and evaluation about what they want to do moving forward. So, because if one partner is like, I'm not down for that, and the other partner is, this is what I want, then they're going to have to make, I say, y'all going to have to make a serious choice of whether or not to stay together, because it's not going to work. Because if the partner, you know, I've seen those situations too, when the partner kind of goes along with it, but they don't want to, resentment. Nope, it's not going to work. You know, because they get angry, they get bitter, because like, I never wanted to do this. I just did this because you wanted to. So that's why if it is that choice made, I would rather just tell them to make some decisions about figuring out if they're going to stay together or not. Because if the person wants that, I realize something, that people are going to do what they want to do. So if that's what I want to do, I'm going to do it in some form or fashion. Now it's up to me to decide whether or not I want to put up with that. And so if I'm going to find something that people are going to do what they want to do. So that's what I want to do. It sounds like some feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if for whatever reason one's decided, that's, you know, for me in my house, you know, you decide your appetite, your palate changed, you know, just, you know, start packing your stuff, order you some boxes from Amazon.
Come on.
You come home, the stuff is on the curb, outside, you know, because I'm just a loyalist at heart, you know. I just am, and you can call me selfish, and self-centered. I just don't. There's a couple of things I just don't share. Now, you want a piece of my chicken? I share that. Okay. You want to taste a piece of my cheesecake because I love cheesecake. You can have some of that. But you want a piece of my husband, Tony M. Cash? We gonna fall out. And it's not gonna be a good fall. That's why I keep a good lawyer in my phone.
and a knife in your drawer.
And a knife.
Y'all talking about slicing folk.
Listen,
Yes.
Both of y'all husbands know that. That's why
Right.
they are very clear about their wives. They are very clear.
Right.
They know they're not gonna bring in nothing about, hey, do you want to bring in your friend or her friend? No, you ain't. Y'all are not the candidates, right?
No, we are not those kind of candidates. Don't DM me. I'm not interested. Don't DM him. We not interested.
It wouldn't be by DM though, but that's fine. It ain't gonna be by DM that happens.
Don't do none of that kind of stuff. We not the cashes. And I'm speaking for my husband because I have every right, and he's the head of my house, Vicky, too. And
Bless y'all.
We're not interested in that kind of
It's gonna
friendship.
be 2 heads in mine.
You know what?
It's gonna be 2 heads.
Tony Cash is listening.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
I
saw him post in the chat, and I thought I saw him say that he was interested in more information.
Don't do that. Joy said it ain't gonna be none of that.
It ain't gonna be none of that.
I got some scissors right here.
Hello.
Yeah. Look, but you know what else is very similar to, and I can say this, it's very similar to people who say, yeah, I want kids, and then they get married and they don't want kids, and that resentment hit, and that becomes a horrible marriage because somebody lied going in saying they want kids. It's the same kind of piece in all seriousness of not agreeing to whatever or deciding on, quote unquote, like y'all say, the standards at the beginning. Because, and here's why that is important, because a lot of times, and even in the Christian marriage, we do this premarital counseling. And when we do this premarital counseling, we define roles, which can be problematic, because a lot of people who become married, they are basing it on what you told them the role should be. And then they lose themselves. Not that roles aren't important, because they are. I'm just saying they lose themselves in that because they think that a woman position and role and disposition in a marriage is a certain way. And you find a lot of people, and I have counseled those who've gone through a lot of trouble because some pastor said this, who did not say it right. Not saying that we don't say, those of us who do it, but there are persons in the collar who are counseling people into these roles. And what end up happening, people decide they have a different appetite, and it wasn't decided in the beginning, because in the beginning, we didn't talk about those things. We didn't discuss those things, because here's what we do. We get married. And once we get married, then we decide what our sexuality is. We decide what we're going to do. Nobody talks about that before, because you can't fornicate before you get married. But you don't even have the conversation. So people get married and they have no idea what their own sexual pleasures are. They have no idea what they like or anything about their bodies. And you get into marriage with a man who been already out there carrying on, having a great time, and expecting the same. And get in there, and it is what we call ABC, honey. And it certainly is not XYZ.
What's that preacher guy name that stayed a virgin until he married?
Oh, you talking about Gray?
John Gray.
Mhm.
And
He
then
stayed a
he
virgin
got
till he
married, and
married.
he tried to snatch everything that was broken.
Listen,
Hot
if I
Got
could,
a taste.
Hot mess.
Hot
Got a
mess.
taste of
but
that thing.
we shall not talk about John.
no, not John Gray.
Okay.
He's not the standard either. But
I'm just
Hot
saying,
mess.
you go in one way and you come out in the middle
you
of
got-
another.
Yeah, he was
But
addicted.
I want to say this. I do want to say this, Libby, because when you and having counseled pre-marriage counseling to couples and trying to give them some ideas of what to expect, even from a sexual standpoint. Let me just say this. We take new jobs all the time in our careers.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes you don't know what really to expect.
Yes.
And sometimes you're given job descriptions that include the roles and your role and your responsibility.
Yes.
And you take it. You're clueless sometimes until you really are in real time in that job. And you either make a decision, I'm in it, to master it, or you go find another one. I don't think to minimize the value of the counsel, and we do have some bad counsel that exists.
I don't think it's a minimized. And
But I'm saying from my perspective, Libby, just from mine, I have seen many that desire. My husband and I did not get premarital counseling, and I know absolutely we could have benefited from it. Absolutely. But
Sure.
we didn't at that time because we were probably the environment that we were in, it didn't allow for it, right? It just didn't. And our awakening to the things of the Word of God were a little bit later on. My point is, I don't think anything's wrong with establishing roles. We have roles in everything we do in life.
Sure.
There's expectation in everything we do in life. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not talking about roles where you're making people little and insignificant. That's not it. Browbeating, that's not it. Abusive, that's not it. I'm talking about people who desire to find out how to grow and to experience marriage at its ultimate. There's nothing wrong with starting out with the counsel.
No, I don't think that's. I'm not saying that, Vicki, and I don't want that to be what you're thinking. I'm saying good counsel is good. Bad counsel is bad.
It is.
And there's a lot of bad counsel in premarital counseling. That's why people, when people go to marriage counseling and they begin to say, you hear everything that they was taught in premarital counseling. It happens all the time. So I'm not saying that premarital counseling, we shouldn't have it. Certainly you should have it. But I also would say that roles are often defined by the marriage. Every marriage is different. And so when you get in that marriage, no marriage is the same. No marriage is the same.
There's
No
a
marriage is the
standard,
same.
Libby.
It's your standard, Vicki.
Well, wait a
It's
minute.
not mine.
There's individualities.
Can I raise my hand? Can I get in there? Let me just say this. I think what I hear both of you saying, I too do have performed premarital counseling. I just concluded one session, and my husband was doing a session just tonight. And one of the things we always tell couples is, number one, marriage is for grown folks. All right.
There you go.
That's the rule number one. And rule number two, every marriage is unique. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be fluid in the marriage because things may change and you got to pivot, because life changes. We may come in it one way, and then because we're always becoming, we're always changing as individuals, we're always evolving. And so sometimes the marriage evolves as well. But there's still just a box, for some people, and again, I'm speaking on behalf of the Cashes, and this is what we advise people, to decide what values are important to your marriage.
That's right.
And let that shape let that shape your marriage. And so you got to have some kind of box, you got to let that box you in what's important and let that shape you. And so and those are the things that have been what we start off with premarital counseling, because that's important to help people understand. And I can say that, I think I posted this on my page maybe when Pastor Tony and I was celebrating I think 17 years. That's all right. 17 years. Yeah. I lose count, but 17 years. We celebrate 17 years this year of marriage. I'm a well-kept woman.
Come on.
Okay. And if I had to do it all over again, I would say I do. Even through the ups and downs, I would say I do. And I think those are the stories when we talk about Black love winning, or we talk about marriage winning, whether you are a Christian or non-Christian. Those stories about happily married couples should prevail, so people can know that I too can stick it out and I can be successful in it. And so I thank everyone so much. We're over our time. That means, Dr. Cooper Lover, we got to have you back again.
Yes. I enjoyed y'all. Yes.
To keep Libby and Vicky at bay.
Yeah.
That was good. I was
so much. Please tell everyone how they could follow you or contact you if they want to know more about your services or just connect with you all together.
Yeah, definitely. They can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Cooplove or New Creation PSY. That's the actual practice. And the same handle is for Facebook and Twitter, and website at newcreationpsychotherapy.com and drcooplove.com.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. Good night.
Good night.